Chapter 6. A Short Time Ashore. After leaving Charlestown, Blackbeard sailed north. He needed a place to rest his crew and repair their ships. His fleet headed to the barrier islands of North Carolina. The tiny bays and narrow waterways between islands were perfect places to hide from Navy ships. As the huge Queen Anne's Revenge tried to sail nearer to the coast, it ran aground on a sandbar. The bottom of the ship smashed into the bottom of the shallow sea. The mighty ship was badly damaged. It could not be towed out of the sand and would soon sink. Blackbeard ordered the ship emptied of as much stolen cargo, supplies, and sailing gear as possible. It was all loaded into a smaller ship called the Adventure. While the pirate crew was transferring their treasure, they learned some very interesting news from England. Charles Eden, the governor of the colony of North Carolina, was offering a royal pardon for pirates. Given by King George I of England, the pardon forgave all British pirates. It was a way to get the pirates to stop stealing without having to attack or capture them. Blackbeard sent Stede Bonnet, who had remained on board the Revenge all this time, to request a pardon from the governor of the North Carolina colony. But while Bonnet was on his way back from seeing the governor, Blackbeard sailed away in the Adventure, along with all the treasure and cargo Bonnet and his men owned. Blackbeard marooned, or left behind, most of his crew on a small island. Blackbeard, the pirate, was now stealing from other pirates. Blackbeard sailed with his small force to the town of Bath, North Carolina. He wanted to meet Governor Eden personally. Blackbeard convinced the governor to not only pardon him and his men, but also to help them. Blackbeard said that he and his men would protect the small town from other pirates. In return, Eden would give them a place to live in the colony. For several months, the men of the sea became the men of the land. They built small houses in Bath and met the townspeople. Bath itself was not very big, perhaps no more than 24 homes in all, so the arrival of the pirates increased the population quite a bit. The pirates were not perfect citizens, and rumors of wild party and troublemaking followed them. Governor Eden ignored the trouble, probably because the pirates were paying him with some of the gold or supplies they had stolen. A local legend says that Blackbeard himself built a house on Plum Point overlooking the town harbor, but he spent a lot of time making trips to his ships, which was anchored nearby. That was because even though he had been officially forgiven for his crimes, Blackbeard still continued raiding passing ships. 2 of the ships that Blackbeard captured while living in Bath were from France. One was carrying sugar back to Europe. On August 23, 1718, Blackbeard sailed toward the 2 large merchant ships, his cannons pointing straight ahead. Suddenly, as if scared, he steered his craft away. While the Frenchmen watched this odd display, they did not see it was another of Blackbeard's boats coming up from the other side. Musket balls suddenly whizzed over the heads of the French crew. Then Blackbeard returned to trap the 2 ships between his own craft. It was another example of his brilliant sailing and ruthless pirating skills. Pardoned or not, Blackbeard couldn't seem to give up the life of a fortune hunter. Chapter 7. The Hunt is On. Though Governor Eden was not hunting Blackbeard and was in fact sharing some of his profits, other governors in the colonies still wanted the pirate's head. William Keith, the governor of Pennsylvania, ordered him arrested. If someone could find him, Alexander Spotswood, the governor of Virginia, tried but couldn't locate him. Spotswood was outraged by the capture of the French ship and the governor Eden's behavior in helping the pirates. I thought it was necessary to put a stop to further progress of the robberies, he wrote. Only one of Blackbeard's men, William Howard, was captured and arrested by Spotswood officers. Howard gave up information about where Blackbeard might be. Governor Spotswood ordered the 2 Royal Navy ships to sail to North Carolina, with orders to find and capture or kill Blackbeard. Blackbeard, meanwhile, remained in North Carolina. By this time, he had moved out of Bath and spent most of the time on a camp on Ocracoke Island, one of the barrier islands of North Carolina. For mostly of sand, the islands shrink and grow over time as they are battered by waves and tides. Few trees or grasses grow on the dunes, and only seabirds live there at the time. The wind howls often, and the nights can be cold. Blackbeard's crew would make half camps using ship sail for tents and cooking over campfires. He was probably aware that British ships were searching for him, but he believed that he had picked a good hiding spot. The narrow inlets around the island would make it hard for large ships to reach him. At the same time, more and more Royal Navy ships were indeed patrolling the waters of the American mainland and near the British colonies of the Caribbean. The net was closing around the pirates. Chapter 8. The Death of Blackbeard. The ships on the North Carolina coast reported seeing Blackbeard and his crew camped on Ocracoke Island. It would be tricky to reach the camp. The pirates had anchored their small ship, the Adventure, down a very narrow channel of water. The large Royal Navy ships could not sail near the island without being hitting bottom. Captain Elise Brand of HMS Pearl put Lieutenant Robert Maynard in charge of the attack. HMS stands for His Majesty's ship. His Majesty, in case, refers to England's King, George I. Maynard hired 2 small ships, the Ranger and the Jane. They were lighter and would be able to navigate in the shallow waters. Brand told Maynard and his crew that there was a £100 reward for Blackbeard, about $20,000 today, as well as small amounts to be paid for other captured pirates. Earning that reward would be very dangerous, however. Maynard hired 2 local men as pilots. They knew the channels and sandbars very well. The pilots would help the sailors aboard the Ranger and the Jane make it to the small bay near Blackbeard's camp on Ocracoke. On the cloudy morning of November 22, 1718, the 2 ships sailed towards Blackbeard's anchored ship. Blackbeard and his men had been drinking until early that morning. He was probably still asleep, but when a lookout spotted the Navy ships, Blackbeard and his men railed to action. The Ranger and the Jane fast approaching the Adventure when they were only a few hundred yards from the pirates. Ranger ships unfurled their flag, Union Jacks, the symbol of Great Britain. The pirates knew for sure that they were being hunted by the British Royal Navy. Maynard called over the water for the pirates to surrender. He said later that Blackbeard yelled back and insulted his men. The dreaded pirate called Maynard and his men cowardly puppies, and said he would neither give up or take quarter. Quarter can mean 1/4 of something, or it can mean mercy. Blackbeard used it to mean he would neither give any mercy to nor expect any mercy from his attackers. Blackbeard backed up his words by firing a broadside at the 2 Navy ships. The cannons were loaded with iron balls, nails, and scrapped iron. The red-hot pieces of metal tore into the Navy ship. With one blast, more than 20 men out of only 57 crew members were killed or wounded on the Jane and the Ranger. Maynard was on board the Jane. He saw that many of his men were injured or dead. The small ships had no cannons to fire back. had left them behind so the ships would be light enough to reach Blackbeard. To save his men from another broadside, he sent many of them down into the hole below the deck of the ship. Blackbeard steered his ship towards the Jane. He thought most of Manion's men was dead, and that he could storm and capture the ship. As they got nearer, Blackbeard's men threw grenades and exploded on the deck of the Jane. A grenade was a small explosive that could be thrown at a target, similar to a hand grenade. When the sides of the two ships banged together, the pirates threw metal hooks over the Jane's rail, and ropes attached to the hook tied the two ships together. Blackbeard led the way across into the Jane. He was wearing his pistols and waving a huge sword. Manion and a handful of men faced a large group of pirates. Suddenly, the rest of Jane's crew burst from the hold. Blackbeard's crew was outnumbered. A desperate fight followed. Pirates and sailors used swords, pistols, axes, and even wooden poles to fight each other. The deck grew slippery with seawater and blood in the middle of the battle. Looney, Manion, and Blackbeard faced off. Manion shot Blackbeard with a pistol, but the pirate stayed on his feet. The two men clashed swords. Even though he had been wounded, Blackbeard was so strong that he broke Manion's sword. Manion grabbed another pistol and shot Blackbeard again. By then, other sailors were running to help Manion. A Navy sailor slashed at Blackbeard's face, leaving a large wound, but the pirate kept fighting. For several moments, Blackbeard battled against the sailors before he finally fell to the ground. After being shot 5 times and stabbed with swords 20 times, Blackbeard was dead. He was probably no more than 40 years old. A few minutes later, the other pirates surrendered. The Navy sailors locked and captured the shackled pirates in the holds of the Ranger and the Jane. They made sure all the dead pirate bodies were brought on board too. They would need them to collect their money. The reward would be paid for any pirate alive or dead. Manion had Blackbeard's head cut off. The legendary pirate's body was thrown into the ocean. A local legend says that it swam around the ship 3 times before sinking further into the Atlantic. Blackbeard's head was hung from the front of the Jane. The British government did not treat pirates kindly. The punishment was death. The survivors from Blackbeard's crew were brought to Virginia and put on trial. All but 2 were convicted and hanged. Like many executed pirates, their bodies were then hung near the entrance of the harbor in Virginia. Colonial leaders displayed the rotting corpses, often pecked apart by birds, as a warning to any other would-be pirates. When Manion returned to what is now Hampton, Virginia, in truth, Blackbeard's head was stuck on a tall pole for everyone to see. Today, the spot where his head was on his view is known as Blackbeard's Point. Chapter 9. Blackbeard's Legacy. 1724, a book was published that helped make Blackbeard and many other pirates famous. Written in England by a man named Charles Johnson, which historians think was probably not his real name. A general history of the robberies and murders of the most notorious pirates. Told tales of pirates on the high seas, raids on ships, and the treasure they captured. Johnson's book is one of the only places that it would teach is called Blackbeard. But the image Johnson described made Blackbeard clear in the reader's mind. The belt of pistols, the enormous smoking beard, and Blackbeard's fiery eyes. Because no paintings or drawings of Blackbeard were made while he was alive, many of the images we're now familiar with were based on Johnson's descriptions. Those pictured helped spread the Blackbeard's legend. Creating that legend was a big part of Blackbeard's life. He worked hard to create a fearsome look. His long, wild beard was said to cover most of his face. He wore not one or two, but many swords and pistols when he went into battle. He burned ships, stole whatever he could take, and threatened people with death. It was rumored that he even shot at his fellow pirates to keep them in line. But in reality, it is not known that Blackbeard ever killed any of the prisoners he took. He released his hostages, and he actually let some ships go on their way if they did not have much for him to steal. For a short time at least, he settled into a life on land in a house in Bath. One accountant even says that he was married there. Still, the legend of Blackbeard lives on. Unfortunately, piracy has never really gone away. In recent years, pirates from East Africa have attacked and captured ships in the Indian Ocean, including large oil tankers and luxury yachts. They steal money they find on board or steal the contents on the tankers, including the valuable oil. Today, pirates use fast motorboats to catch and overtake the small moving tankers. Blackbeard and other pirates continue to have a huge impact on modern culture. Pirates have always been popular in movies, as early as the 1920s and 1930s films, like The Seahawk and Captain Blood told tales at sea. But Lancaster starred in the exciting film The Crimson Pirate in 1952, and a comedy called Blackbeard's Ghost came out in 1968. More recently, the success of the Pirate of the Caribbean movie series made pirate lore and legend popular once again. People enjoy the legends surrounding pirates such as Blackbeard. Historians, however, look for the fact. In 1996, divers working underwater off the coast of North Carolina discovered the wreck of a large sailing ship. Artifacts they found made them believe they had located the last place of Blackbeard's famous ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. They found cannonballs, coins, bells, medical gear, and other artifacts. One of the cannons were fully loaded, ready for firing. After 15 years of careful study, officials confirmed that this was indeed Blackbeard's ship. But while the pirate ship hadn't been found, the mystery around this bearded villain remains. Though it is not known for certain how he began, it is known how Blackbeard ended as the most famous pirate in history.